been talking for a long time on these videos. There's a busy life and many things are happening. And I was working on a video last time. I did part one of what is more natural, the capitalism or socialism. And I came off at the end of that, and I might have sounded very pro-capitalistic in that. And I received a comment from a very nice gentleman on this video, and he took issue with the fact that he said that socialism is more natural than capitalism because it's been around longer. The early hunter-gatherers were socialists, little families and everything else and so forth. And he also had a bad attitude about capitalism in general, saying capitalism was evil. And if he watches the second video, which is so much later than the first one, then I want to tell him why he's wrong. Okay, first of all, the hunter-gatherer societies of primitive man don't really count as a economic structure because it was in a different series of the limited resources were only in a smaller area. What I'm talking about with capitalism and socialism is in the modern world where you have many people at a crossroads, like metropolises and so forth, cities, towns. In that situation, there is a natural form of economics which falls into the capitalist system. And what we're arguing, of course, as usual, is semantics. We always seem to, everything comes down to semantics, But I wanted to point out that the earliest thing that we have as far as history are the cuneiforms of the Sumerians. And they had a ledger. It was a capitalist ledger counting how much grain they had in their warehouse. That's the earliest form of history, as far back as we can go. And you can't go any farther back than that as far as historical documents have been capitalist. But I'm not arguing that capitalism is a wonderful thing. My point is that it's like cursing the rain. If you don't like capitalism, then you don't like rain. You stick your head out the window and shake your fist at the sky and say, "Damn that sky!" But that's not going to happen because it's natural. You have to deal with it. And that's what capitalism is. I'll give you a really quick rundown of what capitalism is before I go into socialism. And that is when you go to the store and there's 3 stores on the corner and you have just so much money to buy milk for your children. And the one store has it for $4.50, the other store has it for $3.50, and the other store at the corner has it for $2.50. Now it's pretty much the same thing, milk in a bottle. So which one are you going to buy? You only have, unless you're like fabulously wealthy, it doesn't matter. You're going to pinch pennies. You're going to buy the one for $2.50. All things being equal, you'll buy the one for $2.50. And even if you're the world's biggest socialist, it would be hard for you to justify buying a $4.50 bottle of milk when you can get it for $2.50. And then the same thing goes whenever you're working. If you get a job working for somebody as a computer repairman and you do a wonderful job for them and they agree to pay you minimum wage, whatever that is, $8.25 or whatever, $8 an hour, and you do every computer that they bring in, you fix it, and people come back with their computers, and this guy is, after 6 months, he comes to you, and some other guy comes to you and says, "Hey, you're making $8 an hour, I'll pay you $20 an hour to come up the street and work for me." Well, what are you going to say? I guess if you're a socialist, say, "Oh, no, I'll work for the $8 an hour. After all, that's what I agreed with." No, you're going to work for the $20 an hour to do the same thing. Because that's the way human nature operates. You want to get the most for your money. And that's capitalism. If you multiply that every day in every situation like that across the world, you may have 1 trillion transactions like that in a week. And all those little transactions go together to the supply and the demand and all that to determine the price. That's capitalism. Now let me tell you about socialism. Yeah. Socialism, and most people in the right don't understand what socialism is. Any government is socialist because socialism is people working together to accomplish something that they cannot accomplish separately. That's basically what socialism is. So any government whatsoever is usually some sort of a union of people working together to accomplish something. It may be unfair government or not, but that's generally what it is. Whoever makes the decisions in the area is the government. And a democracy is always socialist. Because if you elect people to public office, very few of them are going to show up and do their job unless you pay them. And you can't pay them unless you charge taxes. And if they want to build a road, the public good says, well, a road would help promote a better prosperity for all the trade. Well, that road comes out of somebody's pocket. It's taxes. So my point is, any form of government that is short of a warlord raping and pillaging the village, any other form of government would be socialist. All democracies are socialist by their very nature, because nobody works for free, and nothing gets done for free. It has to be coming out of one way or another. And those folks who think that pure capitalism is like a dogma for them, which is all the right wingers seem to be in love with this whole idea of laissez-faire capitalism, pure capitalism. It's just a pretty ham-handed thing. You understand that when you remove the public's decision, the public's power over something, that there's automatically somebody that makes those decisions. There's a power vacuum that fills in. And that power vacuum always seems to go to the persons who have the most money, who have the most power at that time. I'll give you an example. The EPA. All you right-wingers hate the EPA. Oh, government regulations. Oh, it's restricting business. Well, if there were no government making that decision, and that there were no EPA, then who would make the decision about how many toxic chemicals can be dumped into the streams, for example? Well, I have some guys that I know who are right-wingers saying, oh, nobody wants to pollute, they say. But the truth of the matter is, whoever does pollute is going to produce their product cheaper than those who don't pollute if you don't have any regulations. See? So the cheapest person would be the one who puts a pipe out the back of his factory and dumps it into the creek behind his building. There's no EPA, many people would be doing that. Now, all the good people who say, well, we wouldn't do that, well, suddenly they're getting undercut in price because this fellow has no cost for controlling his toxic chemicals, and he can subtract that cost off of the price of his product, and he'll undersell his competitors. So if he does it, then all of his competitors have to do it as well. See, that's the purpose behind the government. The purpose behind it is to stand up and say, well, gee, it's not doing the community much good to be dumping toluene into the creek behind the building. It's killing the little children down the stream. Now we're in the third world country status. So we developed a socialist form of government to control the people who would otherwise take the cheapest course. See, every single time somebody removes themselves from a governmental decision, or if the government gets out of something, somebody's going to make that decision. And it's going to be the person with the vested interest financially that's going to make that decision. We've seen this over and over again throughout our history, that when the Republicans deregulated the savings and loans, what did we get? We got the savings and loans meltdown. When they deregulated the finance and banking, we got this worst recession in my lifetime. There's people who were very intelligent in the government who wrote all these rules, and they weren't just a bunch of idiots. They had a good reason to write these rules, and they were well thought out rules. I mean, see, the thing is, Since really the beginning of government, this has been something of a debate that's been going on. How much taxes and how much regulations. And the problem I'm seeing with people on the right now is they're dogmatic. They don't understand that this is a very delicate balance that has to be created. Of course, you don't want to, if you put too much in, the bureaucracies become expensive. And there is a restriction on the ability of businesses to work freely. But if you don't put enough in, then what you're looking at is a disaster, economically, like we just saw, or, environmentally. I mean, these things are what the government's supposed to do. They're supposed to make these very difficult, technical, detailed decisions about how much socialism and how much capitalism. Because you understand, the way I look at it is socialism is a form of technology. Government is a technology. Man created government. Man created the rules. Man created the Constitution. It's a form of technology. And we've improved on the technology over the years. We have. I mean, it used to be, like warlords. They used to take the guy with the biggest, muscles, and he beat everybody up, and he was the boss. Now we vote everybody in. And then we created a constitution guaranteeing rights. And we've written the Glass-Steagall Act and so forth, controlling and being, cautious about what type of capitalist system. Because capitalism is, as I said, a natural thing that occurs in a large society. And socialism is a technology that man creates. So it's just like the river, the Mississippi River and the Columbia River and so forth. Those are forces of nature. That's like capitalism. And the dams that they build to produce electricity along the rivers, are like government. They're a form of technology. In other words, instead of hating capitalism and cursing at it and saying, oh, it's evil, understand that it's a reality. It's a force of nature. So what you got to understand how to do is technologically control nature so that you can get the best benefit for everybody. Both sides are missing the point on this. We need to be careful about harnessing capitalism so that we don't ruin it. But on the other hand, we need to understand that if you let it just go by itself, it runs roughshod over everybody. That's the way that socialism, capitalism relate.